Shri Govinda Gopinath Maran Mohan Ju ki jai, Nitya Lila Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashtatarashata Shishimar Bhakti Viranta Narayan Gosai Maharaj Shri Gurudev ki jai. Nitya Lila Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashtatarashata Shishimar Bhakti Viranta Vaman Gosai Maharaj ki jai. Nitya Lila Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashtatarashata Shishimar Bhakti Viranta Sai Maharaj Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Nitya Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashtatarashata Shishimar Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Gosai Maharaj ki jai. Nitya Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashtatarashata Shishimar Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Gosai Prabhupada ki jai. Nitya Pravishta Maha Bhagavat Shri Gorksharas Babaji Maharaj ki jai. Nitya Pravishta Shri Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur ki jai. Nitya Pravishta Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Shri Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj ki jai. Shri Rupa Nuga Gauriya Guru Varga ki jai. Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath, Shri Jeev Gopala Paddash Raghunath Shar Gosai Prabhu ki jai. Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramanandari Shri Gaur Parshad Vrinda ki jai. Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur ki jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Shri Kshetra Mandal Koramandal Vrajamandala Mathura Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Sarva Abhishta Pradata Giriraj Maharaj ki jai. Shri Radha Kund Shama Kund ki jai. Shri Yamuna Devi Ganga Devi ki jai. Shri Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi ki jai. Shri Bhakti Devi ki jai. Shri Purnamasi Yogamaya ki jai. Shri Gopeshwar Mahadev ki jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Shri Kartik Vrat Damodar Vrat Urja Vrat ki jai. Urjeshwari Shri Vishabhanu Nandini Shrimati Radha Thakurani ki jai. Jai Shri Nitya Vishtam Vishnupad Shri Śrīmad Bhakti Dayita Mādhava Gosvāmī Mahārāja ki jai. Tadiya Shubha Avirvav Titi ki jai. Nitya Vishta Maha Bhagavat Shri Goksharas Babaji Maharaj ki jai. Tadiya Shubha Tirubhav Titi ki jai. Shri Bhishma Panchak ki jai. Shri Uttana Akarashi ki jai. Shri Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. Hari Bol, everybody. So I am going to read a very amazing article by Srila Bhakti Dayita Mādhava Gosvāmī Mahārāja today on his auspicious appearance day. Out of every devotional thing I've read, this is probably the most, I don't know what the word is, self-deprecating. Although obviously the Vaishnavas naturally feel like this is their natural humility. Doesn't mean that he actually has these things that he's talking about, these anarthas or whatever, but is showing that ideal humility of a Vaishnava. So we're going to read this article, and then maybe we could read something, a glorification of him, also by Śrīla Bhakti Vijñāna Bhārati Gosai Mahārāja or Bhakti Bhagavad Gosai Mahārāja. I don't know, I'm feeling a little tired right now though. Just came back from Vrindavan Parikrama. So this is published originally this was written in one of the first issues of Śrī Caitanya-vāṇī. That's Śrīla Bhakti Dayita Mādhava Gosvāmī Mahārāja's magazine. And it was translated into English and published in Rays of the Harmonist, Kārtika 2002 edition. Āmāra Bhajana. My devotional practice. Śrī Śrīmad Bhakti Dayita Mādhava Gosvāmī Mahārāja. Why I renounced the world. I have long left worldly life. Why did I leave it? I did it simply to engage in bhajan, devotional service. Bhajan of whom? Shri Krishna. Once again, I'm just checking to see. Hari Bol, Rup Manjari, the all glories to your Param Gurudev. Oops, my. Okay, so let me start over. Why I renounced the world? I have long left worldly life. Why did I leave it? I did it simply to engage in bhajan, devotional service. Bhajan of whom? Shri Krishna. Why bhajan of Shri Krishna? Shri Krishna is the sole cause of all causes, and I have an eternal connection with him only. Who is Shri Krishna? Shri Krishna is that existence which is saturated with completeness. He has the ability to attract all other living entities, and by virtue of this, he personally experiences bliss and also bestows bliss upon others. He is replete with unlimited knowledge. The seers of the truth know him in his threefold aspect of complete knowledge, existence, and bliss. Tattva Vastu, the absolute reality, which is fully Satchid Ananda, is indeed Shri Krishna. Who am I? As a part of his potency, I too am composed of existence, knowledge, and bliss. I too am Satchid Ananda. I am not Vastu Tattva, the absolute reality, but as part of his potency, I have the aspects of existence, knowledge, and bliss. Therefore, I have an eternal relationship with him. What type of relationship do I have with him? I have a relationship in every respect with Shri Krishna only. Shri Krishna has two energies, material, apara, and spiritual, para. I, as the conscious existence, the soul, am the cause and part of Shri Krishna's para energy. And my existence in the form of the effect, the body, is part of his apara energy. So I, the soul, am part of his spiritual energy, and my material body is part of the material energy. Knowing that I belong to him in every respect, I renounced worldly life to eternally dedicate myself to his bhajan. My gross, subtle, and spiritual bodies are forever related to Shri Krishna. Thus, with all my senses, I will at all times and in all circumstances attempt to engage myself in his service alone. This is my bhajan. My initial resolve for bhajan. Now a question arises. Was it not possible for me to stay in my normal worldly life to practice such devotion? Of course, I certainly could have remained there, but I would have had to cater to the tastes of others. This was the main obstruction I faced in living amongst those who were antagonistic to Shri Krishna's service. That was unpleasant. I never wanted to make my valuable life unsuccessful by spending even a moment of it in activities other than serving Shri Krishna. To attain the opportunity to constantly engage in my different senses giving service to Shri Krishna, I obtained by great fortune the association of a most compassionate person who is the abode of affection, the dearmost servant of Mahaprabhu. With loving compassion, he overlooked my disqualification, and to enrich my greed for bhajan, he accepted me as his own. Upon receiving a touch of his mercy, I enthusiastically resolved to engage all my senses exclusively and continuously in the bhajan of Shri Krishna. Consequently, I set out with determination to follow all the primary injunctions of the scriptures regarding the cultivation of knowledge of the soul, and not of this temporary material body. Yes. Haribol Prajumna Prabhu and Mantramurti Mataji and Pramila. Okay, the surfacing of my anarthas. Spiritually inclined people saw that I was becoming indifferent to material affairs and that I was engaged in the cultivation of spiritual practices. They started to honor me, considering me a sadhu, a saint, and thus I became respected. I had resolved to one-pointedly cultivate spiritual life by submitting myself for rectification as a disciple. Unfortunately, however, I once again started to hanker for the luxuries of this body and for worldly prestige, impelled by my previous bad samskars, my previous bad impressions. I had always greatly revered I had always greatly revered and loved my Sri Gurudev. Now, however, due to this burning urge to satisfy my senses, many a time I think him an obstacle to my devious ends, and have started looking at him with a different attitude. I no longer consider him my well wisher. I have some reverence for him, so I cannot control him, nor can I accept his discipline, because it would hinder my whimsical nature. Thus, I find myself stuck in these two crises. Although I had originally resolved to perform bhajan of Sri Krishna, gradually I have forgotten this aspiration. My endeavor now externally exists in name only. In fact, other than desiring to satisfy my senses, nothing brings any substantial delight to my heart. I used to consider myself fortunate upon gaining any opportunity to serve Sri Krishna, but now I see such opportunities as troublesome. I used to feel myself blessed upon attaining service to Sri Gurudev, but now that very same service seems burdensome. I used to be enthusiastic to serve devotees, that is, the Vaishnavas and saintly people, but now I am apathetic to the very suggestion of service. My mind becomes perturbed if I am not always praised and honored in every way by being offered an elevated seat, costly clothes, and palatable dishes. Fearing public opinion, I often feel too shy to openly express such expectations. But I wonder how long I would continue to be counted as a bhakta if I did not receive all this. The sole pleasure of my senses has become prominent, taking the place of Sri Krishna's bhajan. Now my priority is to my senses. If by chance I perform some service for the sake of Sri Krishna or Sri Guru and the Vaishnavas, after or during the course of my selfish pursuits, then and then only am I able to perform bhajan. Wow, it's such an important point. Once again, let's keep on getting a bunch of messages, just making sure this is not anything to do. Okay. Let me reread that because that was a very important point. Now my priority is to serve my senses. If by chance I perform some service for the sake of Sri Krishna or Sri Guru and Vaishnavas, after or during the course of my selfish pursuits, then and only then am I able to perform bhajan. The hypocritical attitude. Although I daily used to sing glories of Sri Hari, Guru, and Vaishnavas, now within my mind, I consider myself non-different from them, that is, equal to them. I am gradually trying to accept their position, and I cherish the desire to attain this world with the Vaishnavas and Sri Bhagavan as my servants. My object of worship is no longer Sri Krishna, but my whimsical nature. In public gatherings, I never fail to collect fame as a great Vaishnava by openly declaring myself the servant of Sri Hari, Guru, and Vaishnavas. However, the truth is that within my heart, I refuse to consider myself inferior to them at any cost. The external respect I used to give to Sri Guru and Vaishnavas was only a device to establish myself in the society as a saintly man and thus earn prestige. Assessing myself. It is not that I have not reflected time and again that I have become immersed in this It is not that I have not reflected time and again that I have become immersed in this sorry plight. I used to consider that, knowingly or unknowingly, I must have committed some Vaishnava aparad. Offenses to devotees usually lead to the waning of bhakti. Slowly, such offenders end up being victims of sensual urges and trapped by kapatata, self-deception. I am sometimes able to detect my faults, but because I fear public opinion and the loss of my false pride, I am reluctant to win the good grace of the devotees by humbly asking their forgiveness. I am more involved with winning the false adoration of worldly-minded people, and I neglect the pleasure of Sri Hari, Guru, and Vaishnavas. My extreme misfortune. Sometimes, to impress the ignorant and eager for their adoration, I pretentiously take to the practice of solitary bhajan. And sometimes I take to the occupation of a mendicant, engaging in begging for my subsistence. All these attempts, however, do not satisfy my restless mind. And because I do not receive my full expectation of adoration, my unrestricted mind finds substitutes to satisfy it. And in this way, my bhajan of Sri Krishna now culminates in attempts to secure wealth, to I don't know how to say this word. Lialize? Lias? Okay, lias. That means establish a working relationship, typically in order to cooperate on a matter of mutual concern. So, in this way, my bhajan of Sri Krishna now culminates in attempts to secure wealth, to lias with women in the hope of attaining their merciful glance and make them do my bidding, or to secure fame. Seeing my wretched condition, my true well-wishers and friends on the spiritual path repeatedly counsel me to refrain from these whimsical activities and take again to the protective guidance of Guru, Vaishnavas, and Shastra. Previously, when I considered their instructions to be nectarian, I bade farewell to worldly pleasures and came to perform bhajan, spiritual practices. My extreme misfortune, however, now keeps me in the guise of a saint, directly or indirectly impelling me to become mad in the pursuit of wealth, women, and prestige. Instructions for my welfare no longer seem beneficial. I had heard that Shastra recommends two paths: Shreya, the superior spiritual path, and Preya, the way of natural tendencies. I had left Preya to pursue Shreya, but my misfortune has brought me back to my old ways. I am no longer eager to hear holy recitations of Śrīmad Bhagavatam or anything about Sri Bhagavan. How many times will I have to hear the same old stories? Drowsiness usually overcomes me as soon as I give my attention to such narrations. But sleep does not disturb me at all when I relish common worldly gossip. I could remain wide awake the entire night just to engage in such gossip without experiencing the slightest distaste for it. I have forgotten the words of Bhagavatam. Therein it is stated, Shrinvata Shraddhaya Nityam Grinatascha Swacheshtitam Kalena Natidhirgena Bhagavan Vishate Hridi. For those who hear Śrīmad Bhagavatam regularly and who always take its subject seriously, the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, will manifest in their hearts within a short time. That's Śrīmad Bhagavatam 2.8.4. The message of Sri Krishna and Sri Gita regarding Abhyas Yoga, constant devotional practice, has slipped from my memory. Having heard a little bit about bhakti, I have impulsively begun to profess well-versed knowledge of it. I am convinced that with my senses, which are full of lusty desires, I have understood what a bhakta is meant to be, and now only Sri Bhagavan remains to be known by me. I have forgotten that the transcendental aspect of bhakti and the bhakta cannot be reflected upon or understood within my mind, which is full of sensual desires. Similarly, I have forgotten the glories of surrender to the Supreme Lord and the Spiritual Master. Nayamatma pravachane na labhyo na medhaya na bahuda shutena yame vaishavrinute tena labhyas tasyaisha atma vivrinute tanung swam. The Supreme Lord is not attained by expert explanations, vast intelligence, or repeated hearing. He is attained only by one chosen by he himself, and he manifests his own form to that person. That's from Mundaka Upanishad 323. Even after repeatedly hearing these words of the Shrutis, I do not remember them. And I have forgotten that the association of the Bhaktas and Bhagavan is never attained by the ascending process, by the Aroha Panta. I observe that sometimes my mind is inclined to perform austerities, and at other times it is inclined to perform pious activities, even though I fully know that neither of these processes can bring one to the association of the Bhaktas and Sri Bhagavan. But I have forgotten this. Raho ganaitat tapasa nayati na chejaya nirvapanad grihadva na chandasa naiva jalagni suryar vina mahatpadarajobhishekam. My dear King Rahugana, unless one has the opportunity to smear his entire body with the dust of the lotus feet of great devotees, one cannot realize the absolute truth. One cannot realize the absolute truth simply by observing celibacy, brahmacharya, strictly following the rules and regulations of householder life, leaving home as a vanaprastha, accepting sannyas, or undergoing severe penance in winter by keeping oneself submerged in water, or surrounding oneself in summer by fire and the scorching heat of the sun. There are many other processes to understand the absolute truth, but the absolute truth is only revealed to one who has attained the mercy of a great devotee. At Śrīmad Bhagavatam 2.3.23. Naishamatis urukramangrim sprishatanartha pagamo yadartha mahiyasang padarajobhishekam nishkinchananam navrinitayavat. Unless they smear upon their bodies the dust of the lotus feet of a Vaishnav who is completely freed from material contamination, persons strongly inclined toward material life cannot be attached to the lotus feet of the Lord, who is glorified for his uncommon activities. Only by becoming Krishna conscious and taking shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord in this way can one be freed from material contamination. That's Śrīmad Bhagavatam 7.5.32. I have forgotten the earlier vows and pursuit of devotion that I took in the presence of my spiritual master. Those vows were in connection with being the servant of the servants of Sri Krishna, and to not allowing any selfish ambition to remain within me. These were the vows that I made in the presence of my spiritual master, to be the servant of the servants of Sri Krishna, and to not allow any selfish ambition to remain. My only ambition was to serve Sri Krishna along with his parikars. I started to perform bhajan with the highest objectives to be had within the realm of this universe. I started with the highest objectives to be had within this realm of the universe. Why I have then rejected it all to take to the insignificant and temporary pursuits of trivial sense enjoyments, which are generally misery bound. Why have I rejected this topmost highest objective to take to insignificant temporary pursuits of trivial sense enjoyments, which is generally misery bound? I do not reflect upon the cause of this with a sober frame of mind. The pretense of yukta vairagya. One second. Hari Bol and Mataji. The pretense of yukta vairagya. I once used to think that to maintain my life, ample wealth was necessary, and that a woman who can submissively cater to my whims was necessary for the satisfaction of my senses. Now I read such verses as Jatasho Matkatasu Nirvinasarva Karmasu Veda Dukatmakan Kaman Parityagepya Nishvara Tato Bhajetamam Prita Shradhalur Dridanishchaya Jushamanashchatan Kaman Dukho Darkangschagarhayan. Having awakened faith in the narration of my glories, being disgusted with all material activities, knowing that all sense gratification leads to misery, but still being unable to renounce all sense enjoyment, my devotee should remain happy and worship me with great faith and conviction. Even though he is sometimes engaged in sense enjoyment, my devotee knows that all sense gratification leads to a miserable result, and he sincerely repents such activities. At Śrīmad Bhagavatam 11, 20, 27 to 28. It's a really, really nice verses. On the pretense of adopting Yukta Vairagya, I have become complacent. I reflect that, after all, in my stage of sadhan, which is full of anarthas, bad habits are bound to exist. I therefore think that these statements have given eternal license to my passions. Maybe that's why I like those verses so much. But these statements actually mean that gradually one must control these inferior habits and selflessly endeavor for bhajan with no expectation of any return. I support my anarthas on the strength of another fault by thinking that for a sadhak, these anarthas are bound to exist. This fault is known as vipralipsa, the tendency to cheat. Wow, this is such a heavy, important, relevant point that I haven't really heard people mention before so much. For sadhak, these anarthas are bound to exist. And so therefore, you support anarthas. Yeah, I have anarthas. I like to listen to music. What can I do? No, that's not. Anyways. There's no scriptural support for such unrestricted indulgence of the senses. This too I have forgotten. Until I become eligible to relish Shuddha Bhakti Ras and absorb myself in the service of Bhaktas and Sri Bhagavan, Shastra has cautioned me not to give up bhajan, but to perform it while accepting those sense enjoyments that are necessary, all the while condemning them. If I do not condemn such sense enjoyment, but fondly accept it, I will have no way of ridding my heart of it. I have forgotten all these statements. My dismal state of affairs. In fact, meditating on the glories of lust, sense enjoyment, the association of women, sufficient wealth, and worldly fame will surely lead me to become eventually attached to them. I came to perform exclusive bhajana Krishna, but I have been allured by the glories of associating with women. I have rejected celibacy to yearn for marriage, having forgotten its transient nature. What fate would await me if I married? Previously, I had definitely renounced this world, but in contemplating momentary pleasures afforded by wealth and forgetting the grief that accrues from such ventures, I became enamored by the endeavor to accumulate wealth. I am eager to win the fickle adoration of worldly people who are blinded by their madness for sense gratification, and I do not reflect upon the anarthas that accompany such deeds. I have therefore disregarded the instructions of Sri Hari, Guru, and Vaishnavas, and displeased them. At times, in my mad pursuit for distinction and prestige, I have not only neglected and offended them, but have become opposed to them. It is not that my dismal state of affairs has not disturbed me. Many a time I have analyzed my depraved life, and how by leading it I have spoiled my chances of attaining the lotus feet of Sri Krishna, who is supreme auspiciousness and full of bliss. I've spoiled my chances by acting against my own ultimate welfare. Within, I sometimes become determined to lead a righteous life in every respect, but impelled by the results of my previous actions, sometimes unknowingly, I become unrighteous. In this state, I ask, is there any hope for my ultimate welfare? I definitely think so. This last part is so powerful. Okay, full dependence on Bhagavan's mercy. I may fail any test in any circumstance, but I will not be discouraged. I will continue to traverse the path of sadhan bhajan, and my master, who is eternally worshipable for me, most compassionate and the deliverer of the fallen, will definitely shower his blessings upon me. Krishna kripa kori ben, dhrida kori jane. A fully surrendered devotee always hopes that Shri Krishna will be kind to him. This hope is very firm in him. That's from Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya 23:28. Dubalo jadi na to dube va. Even if my boat has sunk and I am drowning, I will not give up my efforts. This principle will give me strength. I will not become bereft of hope at any time. No tendency other than bestowing bliss can remain in Bhagavan, who is the embodiment of complete bliss. He is the controller of everyone, and therefore, in his dispensation, there must be an arrangement to bestow bliss, and only bliss, upon me. I am his servant, so he will surely protect and maintain me. Of this, there is no doubt. Bhumo skalitapadanam, bhumireva valambanam, tvai jata paradhanam, tvang eva sharanam prabho. Just as the ground is the only support for those whose feet have slipped, you are the only shelter even for those who have offended you. That's from Vigyapti Panchak, verse 3. Remembering this statement again and again, begging everyone for forgiveness for my offenses, and fully dedicating myself to the service of Bhagavan and his dear associates with determination, I will continue to offer prayers to the Bhaktas and Bhagavan with a service attitude. It is only by their merciful blessings that I can overcome all my tendencies other than to perform bhakti and attain bliss by rendering service unto them. Service to the Bhaktas, that is Guru and Vaishnavas, and Bhagavan, is indeed my bhajan, my devotional practice. Translated from Śrī Caitanya-vāṇī, Year Issue 1, courtesy of Pujapad Śrīla Bhakti Vijñāna Bhāratli Gosvāmī Mahārāja. This is published in Raise of the Harmonist, number 11, Kārtika 2002. Jai Nityala Pravishtam Vishnupad Śrī Śrīmad Bhakti Dayita Mādhava Gosvāmī Mahārāja ki jai. Tadiya Shubha Avirbhav Titi ki jai. Wow. Even though this article is so intense, it makes me, rather than feeling like low and hopeless and it actually makes me feel really hopeful, because even all these heavy things that he's writing, he's showing that he's recognizing us. It's not like I'm just a hopeless case, and there's because I have all these things, because I actually find Gurudev, I find my Gurudev to be what did he say? I used to feel myself blessed upon attaining service to Sri Gurudev, but now that very same service seems burdensome. I used to be enthusiastic to serve devotees, but now I'm apathetic to the very suggestion of such service. All these things that he's saying, these are things that I have in me, and then I feel like, oh, there's no hope for me. But by saying all this, he's saying, I see you. You're not, you're not just some unique case that's completely hopeless. No, he recognizes these anarthas, and then he ends with this beautiful, hopeful thing. This hopeful. What does he say? Just ground is the only support for those whose feet have slipped. You are the only shelter, even for those who offended you. Remembering this statement again and again, begging everyone forgiveness for my offenses, and fully dedicating myself to the service of Bhagavan and his dear associates with determination, I will continue to offer prayers to the Bhaktas and Bhagavan with a service attitude. It is only by their merciful blessings that I can overcome all my tendencies other than to perform bhakti and attain bliss by rendering service unto them. Service to the Bhaktas and Bhagavan is indeed my bhajan, my devotional practice. So we have all hope. No matter what anarthas we have, no matter what bad things we think about Gurudev, what bad things we think about service or Vaishnavas, no matter how degraded we are, there's always hope. We just have to engage in service to the devotees, Guru and Vaishnavas and Bhagavan. This is our bhajan. Serving the Vaishnavas. Wow. Pramila Didi says, it causes a sense of deep remorse, but some loving self-acceptance that one day I will make it. Yeah. Yeah, by saying all that, they're saying, I see you. You're not. Anyways, I'm repeating myself, but yeah. All right. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining me in this reading. And Śrīla Bhakti Dayita Mādhava Gosvāmī Mahārāja ki jai. Jai Shri Sachinandan Gaur Hari ki jai, Shri Shri Radha Vinod Bihari Ju ki jai, Jai Shri Gurudev ki jai, Jai Shri Param Gurudev ki jai, Jai Shri Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Rupanuga Gauriya Guru Varga ki jai, Jai Swaparshad Shri Prabhupada ki jai, Jai Shri Bhakti Vijñāna Bhārati Gosvāmī Mahārāja ki jai, Śrīla Bhakti Vallabha Tirtha Gosvāmī Mahārāja ki jai, Śrīla Bhakti Dayita Mādhava Gosvāmī Mahārāja ki jai, Śrīla Bhakti Pramod Puri Gosvāmī Mahārāja ki jai, Śrīla Bhakti Rakshak Śrīdhara Gosvāmī Mahārāja ki jai, Swaparshad Śrīla Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai, Ananta Koti Shri Kārtika Vrat ki jai, Vrat Palan Kari Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Śrīla Gaur Kishoras Babaji Maharaj ki jai, Tadiya Shubha Tirubhav Titi ki jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Uttana Akarashi Titi ki jai, Shri Bhishma Panchak ki jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Shri Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Om Vrindai Tulsi Devai. Priyaye Keshavashacha Krishna Bhakti Padadevi Sattvatāya Namo Namaha Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyaya Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Dandavat Pranam to everybody. There's another kind of similar article to this one by Śrīla Bhakti Dayita Mādhava Gosvāmī Mahārāja. I'm not going to read it now, but I'll just show it to you. It's a really special article. Let me find it. It's 2004 Kārtika edition. This one. It's Have I Made a Mistake? Here it is. This one. Have I made a mistake? My doubt. A doubt occasionally arises in my heart. I think, have I made a mistake in accepting the shelter of the lotus feet of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas? It certainly seems so. I appear to have made a mistake in taking up bhajan and accepting the shelter of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, and specifically in taking refuge of the Gaudiya Mat and dedicating all my senses to serving the Mat. Gaudiya Vaishnavas are not big-hearted. When we perform bhajan under their shelter, we are controlled by so many rules and regulations. If I were to take refuge of some other sampradaya where there is no concern for offenses such as Vaishnava parad, Nama parad, or Dhamma parad, I would feel no such hindrance or botheration. I would not be obliged to develop exclusive devotion for a particular object of worship, such as Radha and Krishna. Nor would my eating habits be curtailed. Anyways, I'm not going to read this full article, but it's kind of similar. Anyways, that's on Kārtika, Rise of the Harmonist, Kārtika 2004. If you want to read that one, it's a really nice one. And then there's so much to read about Śrīla Bhakti Dayita Mādhava Gosvāmī Mahārāja. Śrīla Bhakti Vijñāna Bhārati Gosvāmī Mahārāja published a book called Volcanic Energy, which is available on vcvani.com, and that's all just filled with Śrīla Bhakti Dayita Mādhava Gosvāmī Mahārāja's glories. It's an amazing book. So many aspects of his glories. That's a real glorification of one's guru. Yeah, really special book. So if you have a chance, you can go to vcvani.com, go to resources, publications, and then all the books are available in PDF format and also Kindle format and EPUB format, all for free. So, all right. Dandavat pranams, everybody. I'm going to go now. I'll see you all tomorrow morning for our reading of Śrīmad Bhagavatam. And tomorrow evening at this time for Govardhan Vas Prarthana Dashakam, verse 4. All right, Hari Bol.